this video, we are going to be looking at parts of an essay, so the breakdown of an essay and what an essay should look like and how it should be laid out. So there are three major parts of essays: an introduction, a body, and a conclusion. So the introduction is the first paragraph in your essay. When I say paragraph, paragraphs are usually 5 to 7 sentences. An introduction is used to introduce your audience to your topic. This is where you're going to have like broad information about your topic and sort of work your way toward a more specific line of thought into your thesis statement. And we'll talk more about thesis statements in another video, but you should never include supporting details in your introduction. Those are for your body paragraph. Your introduction, you just introduce your topic, you give maybe any background information that your reader might need, and you just have your thesis statement. So here are a few ideas on how to begin an introduction. You can state an interesting or startling fact. You can use an anecdote, which is an interesting story, or background information on your topic. Or you can ask a question. Generally, you want to avoid asking questions in like the body paragraphs. But in like the conclusion and the introduction, it can be a good way to catch your reader's attention, because that's part of the whole point of an introduction, is to catch your reader's attention, introduce your topic, lay out your thesis statement, and give any background you may need. So again, you can use, these are just 3 examples of things you can do, and I give you an example of each one, including this really long anecdote. These don't necessarily have thesis statements. This one does, but the other 2 don't have thesis statements. But you should have a thesis statement in your introduction. And then, thesis statement will be the last sentence in your introduction. And again, we'll talk about thesis statements later. After your introduction, so that's your first paragraph, you have your body. This is going to consist of multiple paragraphs. Usually the number of paragraphs you have is determined by the number of points you want to make about your topic. In general, people say that you should have about 3 body paragraphs. You may have heard of the 5-point enumeration essay. That's generally the standard essay that people write, which is just introduction, 3 body paragraphs, and conclusion. So in each body paragraph, you should use supporting details to support your thesis statement. Also, each body paragraph needs to start with a topic sentence. We'll talk about those a little bit later, but your topic sentence supports your thesis statement. And in each body paragraph, we need supporting details. Those details can be like examples, facts, figures, descriptions, explanations, reasons. It depends on what kind of essay you're writing. If you're writing an argumentative essay, your supporting details are going to be things like facts and statistics. If you're writing like a process essay, like a how-to essay, your supporting your supporting details are going to be things like examples of how to do something and like descriptions of how to do something. So your supporting details will depend on the type of essay you're writing, but each of your body paragraphs should have supporting details that support the central theme, argument, purpose of your essay. So throughout this, I use this second prompt, I suppose. So let me read this anecdote to you really quickly. One day when my cousin and I were at our grandmother's house, we decided to steal and smoke one of our grandmother's cigarettes. While our grandmother was in the garden, we took a cigarette out of her cigarette case and we took a box of matches out of a kitchen drawer. Then we went out to the barn to smoke. We figured that we would be safe in the barn, but we were wrong. Our grandmother came out to the barn to get a riding lawnmower, and she caught me and my cousin with the cigarette. We instantly knew that we were in trouble. Grandmother looked at us and said, "What do you two think you're doing? Don't you know those things will kill you? I know I smoke, but I also know it's a bad habit that you shouldn't start." Less than 2 years after that barn incident, lung cancer claimed my grandmother's life. I then realized that my grandmother was right. Smoking is a bad habit that can cause such deadly diseases as emphysema, lung cancer, and heart disease. So this essay is going to be about smoking and how it's a bad habit that can cause these deadly diseases. So that's my little anecdote that I start this essay with. So in my body paragraph, let's say we're continuing those essays, okay? Or continuing that essay. So if I'm going to continue it, I could use this as a topic sentence for my first body paragraph. So my first body paragraph is going to be about emphysema because that's what I said in this, which is my thesis statement. So my first body paragraph topic sentence could be, one deadly disease that is often caused by smoking is emphysema. And then I'm going to use examples, facts and figures, statistics, all of that information to support the fact that emphysema is deadly and it's caused by smoking. So, and then I'm going to do the same thing for my other two body paragraphs, just about lung cancer, the second one, and heart disease, the third one. Now, in between my body paragraphs, I need transitional words and phrases. What those do is they sort of lead your reader from one thought to the next. And I gave you useful transitional words and phrases. That's this, blah, blah, blah. That is what this is. Sorry, I'm stumbling over my words today. Transitional words and phrases are just things like first, second, third, then, next, later, because, consequently, most important, least important, so on and so forth. So these are some examples of transitional words and phrases that you can use throughout your essay in between your body paragraphs to sort of lead your reader from one point to the next. Because your essay should all complement one another, but it's not necessarily all going to flow perfectly on its own, because emphysema doesn't necessarily have anything to do with lung cancer or heart disease, but it is connected because they're all caused by smoking. So you're going to want to use these transitional words and phrases to help draw those connections for your reader. So we have our introduction, we have our 3 body paragraphs, and then we have our conclusion. Our conclusion is the last bit of our essay that our reader gets. These are the last things that your reader is going to remember. So your conclusion should summarize your main ideas and restate your thesis statement. You should never introduce any new material in your conclusion. Your conclusion is simply to remind your reader of what's important. It's what you want your reader to remember about your essay. You want to wrap it up, tie it neatly with a bow, restate your thesis statement. So, I give you an example of a good conclusion for the anecdote I wrote about my grandmother. I wish my grandmother would have taken her own advice. If she would have stopped smoking the day that she scolded my cousin and me for smoking, my grandmother might still be alive. She was right. Smoking is a bad habit that causes deadly diseases such as emphysema, lung cancer, and heart disease. Is the calm you get from smoking a cigarette really worth becoming a statistic like my grandmother? So you can see I bring it full circle back to this anecdote about my grandmother, and then I restate my thesis statement. Smoking is a bad habit that causes deadly diseases such as emphysema, lung cancer, and heart disease. And then I end it with this question to make my reader think. So that is how an essay should be laid out. You've got your introduction where you introduce your topic, give background information, have your thesis statement, You have your body paragraphs where you prove your point, you flesh out everything. You have your supporting details, and then in your conclusion, you wrap it all up with a nice, neat bow and give your reader something to think about, something to ponder. And this is the stuff you want them to remember about your essay. So if you have any questions about the parts of an essay, introduction, body paragraph, and conclusion, please let me know. Reach out. Yeah, thank you.